So I snatched the label up, and then I went after my masters, and then I went after the publishing. And then I went to him and said, I want to make you the COO of Death Row so we can handle this unfinished business and put you in a position where you can make moves and make this label grow like it should have grown and tie you back into something that you created. What I was doing was trying to figure out how to get my masters back, which was the key. And then the label became available first. It was more feasible.
But nearly 3 decades later, Biggie's killing remains officially unresolved, with no one convicted of his murder. That fact matters because people frequently combine Tupac and Biggie's murders into one enormous conspiracy. Investigators cannot do that without evidence. Each homicide requires its own proof, its own witnesses, its own forensic evidence, its own timeline, and its own probable cause. Even if someone were someday charged in connection with Tupac's murder, that would not automatically connect that person to Biggie's death. Chapter 7. Something said in 2008 stands out. During recent testimony, former LAPD detective Darren Dupree described investigators speaking with Keffe D during the 2008 proffer session. Investigators were examining Biggie's murder. According to Dupree's testimony, Davis denied involvement in Biggie's killing, but the wording allegedly caught investigators' attention. Davis reportedly said they didn't have anything to do with that one. Investigators asked what he meant. According to Dupree, Davis responded that they had done the other one, referring to Tupac. That distinction is extremely important. If accurately recalled, Davis was separating the two murders rather than claiming they were one operation. And that's exactly why responsible coverage cannot simply declare that everybody connected to one case must have participated in the other. Evidence doesn't work that way. Chapter 8. What would prosecutors actually need? Imagine investigators wanted to build another murder case decades after the crime. They would need something stronger than YouTube theories. They would need something stronger than celebrity interviews. They would need something stronger than rumors from the 1990s. They would need evidence capable of surviving defense attorneys, motions, cross-examination, and ultimately a jury. That could potentially include financial records corroborating payment allegations, multiple independent witnesses, recorded communications, previously undisclosed documents, physical evidence, admissions, or testimony from participants supported by outside evidence. And the older a case becomes, the harder that process can be. Witnesses die, memories fade, records disappear, people change their stories. Physical evidence deteriorates. That's why corroboration becomes so important. Chapter 9. The biggest misunderstanding. There is another misconception circulating online. Some people believe that because Combs was acquitted of racketeering conspiracy in his federal case, the government could never investigate him again. That's incorrect. His acquittal concerned the specific charges and conduct presented in that prosecution. It doesn't grant lifetime immunity from unrelated criminal allegations. If authorities obtained lawful evidence supporting an entirely different offense, that would present a separate legal question. But again, they need evidence. Suspicion isn't enough. Association isn't enough. Being mentioned in someone's interview isn't enough by itself. Being Biggie's label executive isn't enough. Being Tupac's rival isn't enough. A murder prosecution requires proof. Chapter 10. Why Keefe D's trial matters that brings everything back to Las Vegas. The most important development right now isn't a secret arrest warrant. There is no publicly confirmed Tupac or Biggie murder indictment against Sean Combs. The important development is that a murder case, once considered practically impossible to prosecute, has finally reached a jury. Dwayne Davis has pleaded not guilty. Prosecutors say his own statements reveal his participation. His attorneys argue those statements cannot be trusted. Jurors will decide. But regardless of the verdict, investigators and the public are hearing information that spent years buried inside police files. Names are resurfacing. Old interviews are being examined. Detectives are explaining what they were told, and allegations that once existed primarily in hip-hop mythology are being placed under courtroom scrutiny. That's significant. Chapter 11, February 20 to 28. Now picture that prison gate again. February the 20th, 20 to 28. Sean Combs has potentially reached the end of his current federal sentence. What happens? Maybe nothing. Maybe he walks out and begins rebuilding his life. Maybe his appeal changes his situation before then. Maybe his release date changes again. Or maybe between 2026 and 2028, investigators uncover information nobody publicly knows exists today. That's the part nobody can predict. And that's why this story shouldn't be presented as the feds are definitely arresting Diddy when he gets released. There isn't public evidence establishing that. The more powerful and more accurate question is, what happens if the Tupac trial produces evidence that investigators can independently corroborate? Because if prosecutors ever discovered credible evidence showing that another person ordered, financed, or intentionally assisted Tupac's murder, that person's fame wouldn't protect them. And prison wouldn't protect them either. Authorities wouldn't necessarily have to wait for release. They could pursue the case whenever the evidence legally justified it. Final chapter, 2 murders that refused to disappear. Tupac Shakur died at 25. Christopher Wallace died at 24. Both men became larger in death than almost anyone could have imagined. Their music survived. Their influence expanded. Their rivalry became mythology. But behind the albums, documentaries, and conspiracy theories are 2 homicide investigations involving real victims and grieving families. That is why evidence matters. Dwayne Keffe D. Davis is currently facing a jury over Tupac's murder, and he remains presumed innocent unless convicted. Sean Diddy Combs has not been charged with Tupac or Biggie's murder and has denied allegations connecting him to Tupac's killing. Biggie's murder remains unresolved. Those are the facts. But one thing has undeniably changed. For decades, people wondered whether Tupac's murder would ever reach a courtroom. Now it has, and that alone demonstrates something important about cold cases. Time doesn't necessarily erase them. 20 years can pass, 30 years can pass, witnesses can disappear, careers can rise and collapse, people can enter prison for completely unrelated crimes. But if investigators eventually find admissible evidence capable of proving an old homicide case, the calendar doesn't make the questions disappear. So when Sean Combs eventually approaches the end of his current prison sentence, the biggest question may not simply be, when is Diddy coming home? It may be, what will investigators know by the time he does? Because right now, the Tupac trial is forcing investigators, witnesses, and jurors to reopen a chapter of hip-hop history that many people thought would remain buried forever. And somewhere inside thousands of pages of reports, old interviews, witness statements, and decades of accusations could be the answer everyone has been searching for. Or there could be nothing connecting Combs at all. That's what investigators and ultimately evidence must determine. Until then, there are no shortcuts, no conviction by rumor, no guilt by association, just allegations, evidence, testimony, and unanswered questions. And after nearly 30 years, the Tupac Shakur case is finally being tested where those questions belong, inside a courtroom. They're waiting at the gate. Could Diddy face another case after federal prison? For nearly 30 years, 2 murders have haunted hip-hop. September 1996, Tupac Shakur. March 1997, Christopher, the Notorious B.I.G. Wallace, 2 superstars, 2 drive-by shootings, 2 investigations surrounded by accusations, conflicting stories, witnesses, gang rivalries, police theories, and decades of unanswered questions. And now, in 2026, one familiar name has once again entered the conversation: Sean Diddy Combs. But before we go any further, there is something that has to be made absolutely clear. Sean Combs has not been charged with murdering Tupac Shakur or Biggie Smalls. There is no publicly established evidence showing that federal authorities are literally waiting outside the prison gates to arrest him for either killing. Combs has repeatedly denied allegations connecting him to Tupac's murder. What is happening, however, is significant. The Tupac murder prosecution has dragged old statements, secret interviews, and allegations back into a courtroom. And when decades-old information starts getting introduced under oath, people naturally begin asking, could investigators be looking at more than the man currently sitting at the defense table? That question is where this story begins. Chapter 1. Diddy is already behind bars. Sean Combs isn't waiting for his legal problems to begin. He's already serving federal prison time. After his federal prosecution in New York, Combs was convicted on 2 prostitution-related transportation counts while being acquitted of the more serious racketeering conspiracy and sex trafficking charges. His projected federal release date has changed multiple times and was recently listed as February 20th, 2028. So imagine the scene, February 2028. Prison gates open, cameras line the road, reporters are waiting. Supporters believe Combs has finally completed the punishment imposed on him. But there is one question nobody can answer today. Will that actually be the end of his legal problems? That's where the Tupac case becomes important. Because while Combs serves his current sentence, prosecutors in Las Vegas are presenting evidence in an entirely different case, a murder prosecution almost 30 years in the making, and the defendant is Dwayne Keffy D. Davis. Chapter 2. The interview that refused to disappear for years. Keffy D talked. He talked to investigators. He talked publicly. He appeared in interviews. He wrote about the Tupac case. And eventually prosecutors decided his own words could be used to build a murder case against him. According to prosecutors, Davis helped orchestrate the September 7, 1996 attack on Tupac after a confrontation inside the MGM Grand. Earlier that night, Tupac, Suge Knight, and members of their entourage became involved in an altercation with Orlando Baby Lane Anderson. Hours later, a white Cadillac pulled alongside the BMW carrying Tupac and Suge Knight. Gunfire erupted. Tupac was struck multiple times. 6 days later, at only 25 years old, he died. For decades, nobody was prosecuted. Then investigators went back through the history. And one piece of that history was a 2008 interview involving Keffy D. According to testimony now being heard in court, Davis admitted being inside the Cadillac involved in the shooting and described his role in the events surrounding Tupac's death. His defense now argues that many of his previous statements were exaggerated or fabricated. That's for the jury to determine. But buried inside the history of Davis's statements is another allegation, one that has followed Sean Combs for years. Davis previously claimed Combs offered $1 million for Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight to be killed. Combs has denied that accusation. And here's the crucial distinction. An accusation isn't evidence of guilt. Someone claiming another person offered money does not automatically prove that offer happened. Investigators would need corroboration, money records, communications, independent witnesses, contemporaneous evidence, something connecting the allegation to reality. Without corroboration, prosecutors would face an enormous challenge. But if corroborating evidence ever emerged, everything could change. Chapter 3. Why now? This is what makes 2026 different. For years, people discussed these allegations primarily in documentaries, interviews, books, and podcasts. Now a murder trial is actually underway. Witnesses are taking the stand. Detectives are testifying. Old recordings are being played for jurors. Statements made decades ago are being examined word by word. That changes the environment because a courtroom forces investigators and attorneys to establish timelines. Who said what? When did they say it? Who else knew? Can their story be independently confirmed? What evidence existed at the time? And what evidence may still exist today? Suppose investigators hear something during the Davis prosecution that conflicts with an older statement. They can investigate it. Suppose a witness provides previously unknown information. They can investigate it. Suppose financial records, communications, or another independent witness corroborated an old allegation. That could potentially become significant But that doesn't mean charges are coming. It means prosecutors finally have a courtroom where decades of claims are being tested, and that's a major difference. Chapter 4, The $1 Million Question. The most explosive allegation surrounding Combs and Tupac has always been the alleged $1 million offer. If prosecutors ever seriously considered pursuing such an allegation, one question would dominate. Where is the corroboration? A murder for hire agreement doesn't necessarily require a signed contract, but prosecutors still need evidence. They would want to know whether money moved, whether anyone else heard conversations, whether communications existed, whether multiple witnesses independently described the same arrangement before discussing it with one another, whether someone attempted to collect money afterward, and whether the story remained consistent over time. That's especially important because Keffe D's credibility is currently being attacked by his own defense. His attorneys essentially argue that Davis told sensational stories for attention and money. That creates a strange situation. Prosecutors are asking jurors to believe important portions of Davis's previous statements. His defense is telling them not to. So if another prosecution were ever built using his accusations, prosecutors couldn't simply walk into court and say, Keffe D said it. They would need more, much more. Chapter 5. Could authorities wait until Diddy is released? This is where internet speculation needs to be separated from legal reality. Federal authorities would not normally need to wait for Combs to complete his current sentence before charging him with an unrelated offense. If prosecutors possessed sufficient admissible evidence establishing probable cause, another indictment could potentially occur while he was already incarcerated. So the dramatic idea that agents must wait at the prison gate isn't how the system necessarily works. But there is another possibility that makes the theory interesting. Investigations take time. Witnesses cooperate at different stages. Evidence can surface during another person's trial. Prosecutors can continue examining information while someone is serving an unrelated sentence. Therefore, the meaningful question isn't, are agents literally waiting for Diddy to walk outside? The meaningful question is, will anything emerge between now and his release that gives prosecutors enough evidence to open or advance another case? That's a completely different question. And right now, nobody outside the investigation can answer it. Chapter 6. Then there is Biggie. And this is where the story becomes even more complicated. Christopher Wallace, Biggie Smalls, was murdered on March 9th, 1997. He had attended a party in Los Angeles. After leaving, Biggie was sitting inside an SUV when another vehicle pulled alongside. A gunman opened fire. Biggie was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. He was pronounced dead. He was 24 years old. His murder became one of the most investigated and debated crimes in music history. There have been allegations involving gang members, allegations involving corrupt police officers, retaliation theories, record label war theories, and numerous competing explanations.